Tomahawks in Ukraine, Zelensky made a remark that shook the Kremlin. The US is on the verge of a historic decision, and Trump is furious with Putin. The sanctions strike has already hit Russia. The regime is suffocating from drone strikes and US sanctions. 57 regions without fuel. Putin is in panic, Trump is taking action, Zelensky is on the rise. The world is preparing for a major turning point. I'll share all the details in a moment. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Victoria Panchenko, and here are the latest events. Maybe tomorrow we'll have Tomahawks. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the US may still agree to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles.
I don't know, we'll see. Every day something new comes up. Maybe tomorrow there will be Tomahawks.
Yes, the armed forces of Ukraine need Tomahawks, but we're no slouches either. Ukraine is a leader in global weapons production. First and foremost, this is about drones, which, by the way, America also really wants. What new and effective technologies are coming off the assembly lines of Ukrainian defense enterprises, and how is this changing the course of the war in Ukraine's favor? Watch right now.
The Ukrainian defense industry is ramping up production. Ukraine is becoming a global leader in weapons production.
Europe must help Ukraine become a steel porcupine that no aggressor can overcome.
The Security Service of Ukraine has showcased new Seababy maritime drones, which have already been tested in combat. The new Seababys are capable of traveling over 1,500 kilometers and carrying up to 2 tons of cargo. 2 versions have been presented. One is equipped with a machine gun mount and a target recognition auto-tracking system. The second is a Grad maritime platform with 10 MLRS charges. Our drones have shifted the balance of power in the Black Sea and have proven their effectiveness. The new generation of Seababy is even more effective. Therefore, the work to clear the Black Sea of the Russian fleet will continue. In addition, the upgraded drones are equipped with reinforced engines and a modern navigation system. Earlier in June 2025, new models of maritime drones were used during the attack on the Crimean Bridge.
We approached by land, we approached across the water's surface, and in 2025 we approached underwater. There were 2 strikes, each with a power equivalent to 1.1 tons of TNT. As a result, its key supports, the so-called piers, were seriously damaged. Essentially, the bridge now operates in a mode of no more than 5 tons, with only trucks moving across it. No military logistics are being carried out there at all.
Ukraine's allies are in no hurry when it comes to supplying long-range missiles that the armed forces of Ukraine could use to destroy legitimate military targets of the occupiers. Deep in the Russian rear, there's a story in the Wall Street Journal that says, the US has allegedly approved Ukraine's use of long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Fake news? The US has nothing to do with these missiles. Kyiv, in turn, has focused on producing a wide range of its own long-range missiles and drones, which are regularly used to strike Russian territory.
It's an absolute nightmare. The situation keeps getting worse, and it feels like things are slowly slipping out of control. Each day brings new challenges, making it harder to cope. It's getting out of hand, and the stress is really starting to build up.
As of today, Ukraine produces dozens of long-range missiles like the Long Neptune and Flamingo every month, as well as thousands of long-range and rocket-powered drones.
To turn this war into a stalemate, to shift the situation, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to strike at their logistics and their aviation. That's why it's necessary, and I'm not even mentioning the need to strike at Russia's military-industrial complex enterprises and its energy system.
Weapons manufacturers also haven't forgotten about the Ukrainian goddess of war, Bodina. This year, Ukraine has become the world leader in the production of self-propelled artillery systems. Artillery remains the queen, and Ukraine has mastered the production of howitzers. Despite the role of FPV drones on the front line, artillery has several advantages over unmanned aerial vehicles. First, the range of engagement. For the Bodana, this figure reaches up to 45 kilometers. Shells are inexpensive and immune to radio interference, and they are also extremely effective against enemy infantry.
The warhead, meaning these are entirely different capabilities, specifically for striking both enemy personnel, equipment, and key points of permanent enemy deployment. If the Epidron targets a single objective, that is a specific serviceman, then accordingly the capability of the Bodana self-propelled artillery system is to work against clusters. In other words, it is what counters the so-called local assaults by Russian occupiers.
A protracted war and difficult defense require quick and effective solutions from Ukrainian military engineers. While the Russian occupiers continue to dream of demilitarization, Ukraine is gradually becoming the world's largest arms forge. The outcomes of the meeting with US President Donald Trump, in particular, include the fact that there was no meeting between Trump and Putin without Ukraine.
Sanctions have been imposed against Russian energy. There will be no meeting in Hungary without Ukraine.
Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump criticized Putin for not taking the peace process seriously. And he expressed hope that the sanctions would help achieve a breakthrough.
I just felt that the time had come. We have been waiting for a long time.
He called the sanctions package colossal and added that he hopes it can be quickly lifted if Russia agrees to end the war.
We have been waiting for a long time. I thought we would get to this point long before the Middle East.
Let me remind you that the sanctions are aimed at Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. Oil and gas are Russia's leading exports, and the biggest customers for Moscow are China, India, and Turkey. Trump also called on these countries to stop buying Russian oil, trying to put economic pressure on the Kremlin. In turn, Putin mocked the EU sanctions, joking about a shortage of toilets in Russia.
The new mandatory US sanctions are an attempt to put pressure on Russia. The new sanctions will not significantly affect our economic well-being. It will cost them dearly.
By the way, Putin, and here he miscalculated. The dictator supposedly wanted to joke about the ban on toilet imports, but didn't understand whose toilets were actually taken away.
The fact that they cancelled the purchase of our toilets. It will cost them dearly. I think they would actually need them in the current situation. In
turn, the head of the White House responded ironically to a journalist's question about the latest statement from the Russian dictator regarding American sanctions.
It's good that he thinks so. We'll see in 6 months. Let's see how it works out.
Refusing to meet with Putin in Budapest, imposing sanctions, and even possibly allowing the use of their long-range weapons deep inside Russia, Donald Trump has seriously angered the Kremlin dictator. Because he's been stringing him along. How will these recent events affect Russia and Ukraine? And does the key role really belong to the United States? Watch the following report for more details.
The cancellation of the meeting in Budapest, the permission to strike Russian territory with long-range British and French missiles, and sanctions against the two largest oil companies of the gas station country. Donald Trump has finally seen the light and decided to crush Putin. What is really happening in the White House?
I've always felt that Putin wants everything, not just a part. I think he's now ready for negotiations. We don't want him to get everything.
As soon as the relevant cabinet gave the green light, the US Senate Foreign Relations Committee also became active. There, they supported 3 legislative initiatives aimed against Russia, which started the war in Ukraine. Among other things, this includes recognizing the Russian Federation as a state sponsor of terrorism and the use of frozen assets. However, even in the Senate, they admit that it is currently impossible to vote on these bills due to the government shutdown. Despite this, it seems that in just 1 day overseas, they have turned away from Putin. But as analysts claim, it is still too early to award Trump a medal for this. Donald, as before, does not seek Ukraine's victory, but simply wants everything to end as quickly as possible along the current front line. So he can pin the badge of the great peacemaker to his lapel and shift all further problems into the hands of the Europeans. And
Trump continues to act according to his own logic. So Ukraine wants peace. It has said, yes, let's stop at the line of demarcation, that's it. In other words, Ukraine is ready to take the simplest, fastest path to peace. Russia does not want that. So according to Trump's logic, pressure should be put on Russia. So what actually happened in the form of these very sanctions? At the same time, again, following Trump's logic, if tomorrow the Russians say, okay, we are ready to negotiate a ceasefire, they will go to these negotiations and be ready for sanctions to be lifted or for some other easing measures. He hopes that through sanctions he will get through to Putin's reason and that Putin will say, okay, we're losing. Let's try to find ways to get out of this situation.
Trump, who thinks like a businessman, analysts say, failed to take into account the main thing, the logic of Putin. The dictator doesn't care about the impoverishment of millions of Russians or the stagnation of the economy. He has his own priorities, and he has no intention of changing them, neither under the threat of punishment nor for the sake of reward. He
lives for war, you see. The future of the Russian economy, oil prices, none of that concerns him at all. There will always be money for the front. There will always be money for the army. For recruiting soldiers, money will be found, and those very soldiers will be found too. because they've been found for 3 or 4 years already, and they'll keep being found. That's all he thinks about, and he probably believes that everything is going just fine. And as for what will happen later, when something eventually collapses, when people start living badly, when there's no gasoline or something else is missing, they'll find gasoline for the tanks and everyone else will have to walk. That's basically his entire logic. He doesn't feel sorry for anyone, not just Ukrainians, he doesn't even feel sorry for Russians. Why look at that?
So far, the only one to react to the demonstrative turnaround across the ocean has been the unhinged Dmitry Medvedev, whom analysts say isn't worth reacting to at all. Meanwhile, not a word from any official representatives. And most incredibly, in Moscow, they'll pretend that everything is going
according to what was stated. Taking the time to plan ahead is essential, as it allows you to organize your thoughts, set clear goals, and ensure that you are prepared for whatever challenges may arise. They egg each other on. So I don't think Putin will make any radical statements or start insulting Trump and saying that now we're enemies. Well, they'll just say that, maybe he got a bit carried away, we'll talk it over, we'll come to an agreement. I don't think they're expecting us. It's not like he's going to come out, start crying and say, well, that's it, it's over for me. I renounce my power, I've lost, there are new sanctions, they've crushed me.
Can Vladimir Putin roll everything back? And will Trump fall for empty promises and stalling tactics? Analysts clearly see that, unlike the meeting in Anchorage, the US president realized much faster that the long-awaited talk isn't going to happen. But it seems the pendulum has already swung. India and China, according to media reports, will be forced to give up Russian black gold.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
And indeed, to a great extent. Indian refineries will cut their purchases of Russian oil almost to zero after the new US sanctions. Bloomberg reports this. The heads of Indian refineries stated that blacklisting Russia's largest oil producers, Rosneft and Lukoil, will make it almost impossible to continue deliveries. Transactions involving these two companies must be wound down by November 21st. Chinese oil trading companies, following the Indian ones, have also suspended purchases of Russian oil due to the new sanctions. By the way, there is another type of sanction that is being implemented on a regular basis against Russian refineries and the energy system. These are drone sanctions. In particular, on the night of October 24th, 2025, an energy infrastructure facility in Novochakhtinsk was hit. After the attack, the electricity was out for several hours. Preliminary reports indicate that the substation at the Novochakhtinsk refinery site was hit. There was also unrest in Russian Taganrog. Several explosions were heard in the city at night. Locals reported smoke in the area near the airport. Air defense activity was also recorded in other districts. Now, the occupiers won't be producing shells for a long time either. A day earlier, drones attacked the Plasmas military plant in the city of Kopeysk near Chelyabinsk, which was producing ammunition for the Russian army.
Please come home. I'll come see you. The day before, just prior to the event.
Drones also specifically visited the oil refinery facility, which is located in Ryazan. The fuel crisis in Russia has affected more than 57 regions due to Ukrainian drone attacks on oil refineries and sales restrictions. It is possible that the country may become dependent on fuel imports by up to 60%. And repairs to the refineries damaged by drones will stretch until the middle of 2026. More details. Watch right now. The fuel crisis in Russia has even reached oil-rich Tyumen.
Tyumen, did you see this? I pull up to a gas station today, hand over 3,000 hryvnias. Then I say, please fill up my tank for 3,000 hryvnias 95-octane gasoline. And they tell me, here you go.
Gasoline is running out in more than half of Russia's regions.
The madness at the Rosneft gas station in Zhytomyr continues. There's no gas anywhere except at Rosneft. Now you have to stand in line like this for a while.
But as always, the authorities say the situation is under control. There's only a slight increase in prices.
We understand the situation. Prices are high, it's tough. The most important thing is that gasoline is available at the gas stations, but...
How should I put it? Maybe it's available somewhere, but people are saying otherwise.
Guys, there's no gasoline, practically only at one gas station. And here is the right lane, which we can see together. This whole line is for the gas station where there's still a chance that gasoline is available. Most likely they have 100 or 95 octane there. And filming. I started somewhere in the middle of this sausage line to show you what's happening. Such a collapse. There's no gasoline at the gas stations. Give us some gas, guys.
Russia will become dependent on fuel imports.
So in the country, there might not even be gasoline at the gas stations.
Oil refiners will not be able to bring back oil processing to previous volumes until June.
This is what is necessary for the normal functioning not only of its oil refining sectors, but of the economy as a whole.
Russian oil refineries remain outdated in terms of technology and production structure. When some plants stopped operating, the country effectively lost a significant portion of its domestic capacity.
Replacing components with less technologically advanced technological ones will significantly lead to a decline in quality in Russia already, and this was 2 years ago. Back then, they were talking about wanting to change the standards for cars, essentially reverting them to previous standards from the 1970s era. And now they say that due to these strikes and the inability to fully restore everything, they will lower the requirements for fuel production.
Accordingly, the reduction in overall fuel production will result in the fact that
engines, this will inevitably cause a large number of malfunctions and operational issues in vehicles. So this is the reality that is now unfolding in Russia. And once again, this is yet another clear and undeniable confirmation that, as we have seen before, when you are technologically behind, and Russia is in fact technologically behind other major powers, then perhaps you really shouldn't go to war with the rest of the world.
The gasoline shortage on the domestic market in September reached 20% of consumption. Due to the lack of supplies, wholesale gasoline prices have surged since the beginning of the year.
When we say 40 to 50%, we are describing a range that begins at 40% and extends up to 50%, meaning the value falls somewhere between these 2 points, not dropping below 40% and not rising above 50%. Once again, the country's gas stations depend on external fuel suppliers.
To at least somewhat contain the crisis in the fuel market, the authorities imposed a complete ban on the export of gasoline from Russia, relaxed environmental requirements for refineries, quadrupled fuel purchases from Belarus, and also eliminated import duties to start supplies from China.
In September, compared to August of 2025, Belarus increased its fuel supplies fourfold. So they were supplying a little before, but now we understand that Belarus is playing a major role. Because in Belarus, yes, even though you have the most modern facilities in terms of since the USSR is not actively operating, and only the plants in Mozyr and Novopolotsk are running, still, their capacity is not enough to fully support Russia. And then there's China, but neither Belarus nor China will supply, let's say, at the prices Russia wants.
Russia could actually end up dependent on imports by the end of the year, for fuel at a level of up to 60%.
In addition to Belarus and China, fuel supplies to Russia will also come from Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan won't do it for cheaper either. It will be a national approach just like Russia. Now, Russia depends on Azerbaijan, and of course, Azerbaijan will try to take advantage of this. So here, there will be different higher prices, but Russia has no other option. So now Russia really is more and more...
Since the beginning of August, UAVs have struck dozens of major oil refineries in Russia, leading to the deepest fuel crisis in the country's history. And the further it goes, the worse the situation will become. And what do you think? Which sanctions are actually working against Russia and weakening the aggressor the most? We look forward to your comments. Stay tuned for more important updates and don't forget to like the video. Wishing you peaceful skies above.